So, welcome to today's podcast episode. I'm like, I need to figure out a good system to record these podcasts on my drives sometimes because that literally is like the time I have. And I was giggling, laughing literally out loud to myself in the car. I was like, I need to try to record this. So, before I go too much into memory lane, welcome to Paddle Forward Podcast, the podcast where we navigate the currents of life. I'm your host, Anna Connie Walters, and yes, I just made my own impromptu intro. Anyways, so yesterday was Veterans Day for us here local in Japan, and today's pretty much the ending of those in the States. So I decided to wear my American flag made out of trees and nature. We got this from, I don't remember where we got this from. I think it was like a lumberjack. If you've ever been to one of those places where literally it's like a bar, and I don't know who thought about this, but you get these little axes, and the point of it is for you guys to, like, instead of bowling or doing some type of like a trivia game, you guys take turns throwing the axe and trying to get it into the bullseye. Like, I don't know, some old school Renaissance, like lumberjack, I don't know, Game of Thrones. It's actually pretty fun. Um, and we went there for one of our going away, like, gals night when I left Hawaii. And I think that's where this shirt's from. So, anyways, I hope you guys are doing fantastic. I was laughing because have been not great about self-care, in the sense of, like, self-care to me is also my mindfulness practice to, like, help me just reground myself, check in with my body, notice where I'm holding the tension in my body and try to kind of like stretch it out with yoga in itself. And have not been great about it. And there's this huge misconception that because you're a yoga teacher, that you should be like all like, but you're a yoga teacher, like you stretch every day because you teach yoga. And yeah, it makes sense, right? But it's actually not true. I just was talking to my really BFF, one of my BFFs, Leisha Meganson, who's also a yoga instructor, and she's actually a Reiki master. And I found out a really cool fact about her, and we started talking about yoga teaching. And she's like, "Oh, I hate that style of yoga." And I was like, "Really? I didn't." And she's like, "Oh, yeah." And I said, "It's not my favorite." I said, "But it's actually pretty easy for me to teach." Funny enough, I said, "I don't like it because it's super like, I feel like a weenie when I'm doing it for my own personal practice." I said, "But when I teach it, it's so different. I don't understand." I said, "When I'm teaching it, I look like a freaking rock star. I am talking and breathing and holding these poses and looking and telling people, okay, you got to adjust." And they must look at me like, "Dude, how is she? Like, she's amazing." I said, "Because that's how I feel when I'm up there teaching. Like, how am I able to hold all this stuff and talk? I'm not even breathing the way I'm supposed to be, which is the power to yoga is your power of your breath, because that helps you actually hold a lot of these poses." And I said, "But then I will feel amazing and then take that amazing feeling mindset into my own personal practice and think, I got this 60-minute vinyasa. Dude, let's do this." And I'll like even increase um, the level of expertise. Like, I can do this. And I'm struggling. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, it's the same poses I was teaching. Like, how can this be so much different? And she goes, "It's not just you, it's me." She's like, "I don't know. Maybe it's like just the adrenaline of having to like be in front of people." And like, she's like, "I have the same exact problem. That's why I don't like that type of yoga." And I just thought it was super funny. I'm wondering now. I like want to interview people. Like, I want to actually put a poll out. Like, if you're a yoga instructor, I need you to answer this poll because I'm super curious now. I think I'm going to do that. That's a great marketing question because I don't know what it is. And I'm pretty sure if I like researched it, I could figure out like what's happening in our mindset. But that whole point of that story is to tell you that it is not the same for us when we teach to like use that as like check off the box. Oh, I taught yoga today. I did my own self practice. It doesn't work that way. And it's the same way for when I actually do my stand up paddleboard instructor like lessons. Sometimes I just need to go out there and just paddle. I don't want to like have to look at someone and see them struggling and not give them some little nugget of like what they're doing wrong. So sometimes it's just easier for me to just go out there and paddle by myself. And it's this reflection of self. You really go and, look into yourself and you start to see all your little flaws, all your little aches. You get to pay attention to your own body and you really start to notice, you can call them imperfections or whatever, but, your little places that need some extra love. But because you're so focused on those things, I think maybe that's what, it's kind of like just it's humbling to me to do my own personal practices because then I have to think about how my students feel. And so I am constantly in my classes. People who take my classes know it is constantly me telling people, like, this is your practice. And I'll see people like really, really try. They are struggling to do it the way I'm doing it. And I'm like, look, this is not your only option. And sometimes I will literally go the entire yoga class doing the modified version of it. I was like, this is totally fine. If you can do this, good for you, but this is actually just as equally powerful. And I'll just do it with the blocks or with the straps or the other modification. Because I try to tell people that just because you're not doing it like the way the yoga world like says this is the exact version of like this pose, these modifications that I'm giving you are sometimes, if you do them right, actually a little bit more intense than the real version. And if they're not as straining on some of the other parts that you're struggling to like activate to hold these poses in, and so it's really interesting, and so it will not, they will not give themselves permission to try the alternative versions that I give them so that it's not so intense and they're not like hurting until I do it. And so by me doing it, it somehow gives them permission to be like, okay, Connie's doing it. And then I, won't look at them. Like, remember, this is your practice. Listen to your body. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. And if today's just not the day for you to do it the regular way, take the modification. Um, you're doing awesome. You're killing it. You're halfway there. Like in my classes are very much that way because that's how I would like to be coached when I'm doing yoga instead of that silent quiet. Like I get it. That's really for some people that are truly in there as like a self practice, but like I need to know how much longer should I have to hold this? Did I make it at least halfway? Because if I made it halfway, then I'm like, dude, you already made it halfway. Come on, you can finish this pose out. You only have like a half a minute or a whole minute or whatever. And it's just like helps me mindset my own self, talking to myself as I'm holding the poses and having something to actually do. Because sometimes you're there and you're focusing on the wrong stuff and you just need that little voice to kind of just guide you. So, long story short, my favorite yoga app. So, I started really getting into yoga when I was with my husband in Yuma, Arizona. We weren't husband and wife at the time, but it was a really dark space for me. It was a lot of transition. I went from a city life to back to a desert life with that, which I absolutely just despise. And that was after moving from a really big metropolis city, like city, Washington, D.C. to Sacramento, which was, a little bit of like a shock. And then from going to that to Yuma, Arizona, where there is nothing, y'all, it's just desert. And and then adding on top of that like being away from my friends, being away from my family, I ended up taking a night shift at the hospital in the laboratory because I was like the only job that I qualified for that was in the hospital that, was something. So I took it. I was like, I'm epic. I'm an awesome phlebotomist. Like that's one of them skills that I just naturally was really good at. So I was like, got this. And I loved it, except for the fact that it was night. And at that point, I was dealing with a lot of stress. I didn't have good stress management skills at the time. And it was just the added stress of also moving in with somebody. I had been living alone by myself. I had been the center of my life. Me, myself, and I were like my BFF. The world revolved around the three of us. And I had to like adjust to living with someone else and changing like I to us. And it was a struggle, yeah. It was a struggle to mind shift myself that way. So it was a lot of stresses compounded into one time of this life. And I, with my body, I was putting my body through it, like through some massive boot camp. And it was just, that was kind of the tip of like, it started to backfire on me. I was irritable. I wasn't sleeping well. I was starting to gain weight. Um, and the night shift just messed me up. Like I did night shifts in my early 20s and no problem. Like I didn't feel like I had that much of an issue, but in my 30s, y'all, age. Yeah, at that point 30 was not the new 20. I did not feel it at all. So I decided to somebody reached out to me, a yoga, actually a military spouse who was a yoga instructor and invited me to her yoga class. And she's like, it's free. The first class is free to military spouses. And I gave her every like excuse in the book. Long story short, I really loved it. And then of course I found yoga. I really started to love doing it. I understood finally like what I was doing wrong. I had a fabulous instructor. I started to, everything was aligning. I was starting to get used to things. My, central nervous system and my fight or flight was starting to regulate. I started to feel better. And of course, we get orders to move. And that's just the wave of the game. So we ended up in Hawaii and I kind of had to start all over. And I struggled to find a good yoga studio with a yoga instructor that was as awesome as Dina. And so I ended up going with this app called Down Dog. And I've been with them ever since. So since 2013, I want to say. And absolutely amazing. I've loved their app. Since then, they've like gone out. They have now like pre and postnatal, which I also used when I was pregnant. They do bar, they do hit, and they do a variety of different types of yoga: yin yoga, restorative yoga, chair yoga, gentle yoga. Full practice. Like if you don't have a lot of time and you don't want to do like any of the slow stretches, you just need to like do a quick practice. I think they do hatha, they do yoga nidra, and a few other ones. And you can like it's amazing. You can adjust how long, like anything from I think the the shortest practice that you can, choose from or like adjust to is that I feel like 7 minutes is the shortest. It's either 7 or 10. And then the longest is, I want to say 60 minutes for most of them. And you can adjust like level one, intermediate, level two, like advanced. You can adjust the person's tone. You can adjust how much like instructions you want. Like if you're those type of person that just tell me the name of the pose and stop talking, like I got this. And you're more of a beginner or more of a visual person where you need to be walked through and told like these are the things that you should be checking in with or visualize this and whatever. That's me. I like full instruction. You can tell it what body part you want to focus on. It's absolutely fantastic. It's completely worth the price. I paid the highest tier annually because I know I'm going to use it. And so I haven't been. I haven't been, and I feel shitty about it, but it is what it is. So they started doing these challenges, and they I did one a few months ago, but was not very consistent. It was one of those like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. I was all excited. I did maybe like the first 3 or 4 days, and then I missed a day, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna get back on the wagon and do it tomorrow. And then it ended up looking like when you looked at my calendar to see how well I did in the challenge, it looked like Swiss cheese. And it got to the point where like the app stopped reminding me about the challenge and like, you've done so many poses, great job. You've done however many yoga classes, in in this month's challenge. Like it stopped. It's just like, all right, you're done. Like you're not being consistent. I'm not wasting my time on you. So I kind of felt crappy. And so I was like, I'm gonna do it for reals because I really need it. This is a really stressful month for me, just because there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of things that I'm responsible for. And so I decided, yes, I am going to do it. And so what ended up happening was I started including my son into the practices. It just made more sense. It was easier for me. I was like, buddy, I got to do some yoga. And then he basically started coming into my yoga room and was like, I started noticing after the second day, he was trying to do some, like he would look at the video, like the lady on the screen, and he would look at me doing the pose and then he would try to like mimic it. So it was super cute. And now it's become this little ritual. And so we're on our 11th day streak. Today would be number 12. And so now it's kind of something that I look forward to doing with him. So I actually wait until we're together. So if we don't do it in the morning, then I do it right before bed with him. And yesterday I was like, crap, I didn't do my yoga practice. So I was like, 15 minutes, buddy, I got to do my yoga. So I did it next to the bed. And he, sure enough, heard her voice and got down off the bed and started doing yoga. Now, one of the things with yoga is that it can, depending on the poses, massage your digestive system and cause what they call wind removing, where, you basically pass gas. Like a lot of people are definitely afraid of it, but sometimes it happens. And so I farted halfway through the practice and it was like I started laughing. I couldn't keep up with the practice. I had to put the video on pause because my son, who's 2, was like, "Mommy, poopy," and I was in child's pose. And so he started I was wearing like my husband's military, like they call them silkies, but they're like these green shorts that they exercise in, and they have like a built-in kind of underwear. So I wear those to sleep. And so I could feel him trying to like move, like open up the shorts to look to see if I had gone to the so I tried to stay in the pose and be present in my yoga practice whilst like moving his hands away from my butt. And he's like, "Mommy, poopy." And I was like, I didn't poop, I farted. And it was just like this. I started cracking up laughing and I could just not hold it in. Like it was just like it took over me. And then he was like laughing. He didn't even know why he was laughing, but then he started laughing, which just made it even more funny for me. And so I was just like cracking up, but yeah, I was like, we are doing Happy Baby, and so he was on my chest to chest, and he's like, oh, Happy Baby, and so he's like rotated himself on my chest. He's like, okay, mommy, your turn, and I had to grab my feet, and then he's like, he started going like this, which because he's used to me doing Rock a Baby. It's a little bit harder when you got a tiny human on top of you. So he likes when we rock all the way to the side. But it's just been one helping me stay accountable. And I think I find a lot of people avoid trying to do yoga with their toddlers or their children. They wait till they're taking a nap and then it sucks because they may not nap as long as you would like them to, or I know it's not really a full practice because you have that added distraction or they're jumping all over you, but that's where I find like I practice that, finding calm in the chaos. Like inhale the peace, exhale the chaos, and just kind of like enjoy it. Like it's easy to get irritated, especially because you're like, I really need this. I need to de-stress or I need to like stretch, and you are not helping, my friend. And just finding that patience, that grace with them, and knowing that you're doing such a service for them, like holding it together and embracing the moment and finding that peace in that chaos and letting your inner child just like enjoy having them in the room and trying to figure out how to like intertwine that into your own practice, because they eventually will catch on. Like when my husband asked my son, Garfield, can you do tree pose? Like you see him, he props his leg up like right away, the other side, and then he'll do it the other side. Like he knows the actual poses now. He knows happy baby, he knows down dog, he knows upward dog, and he's two, and so I know that by me just having grace where the both of us, the payoff at the end is going to be so magical and powerful for him, because I wish my parents had the guidance that I have now to just have different parenting techniques, in the sense of like knowing that comforting your child or telling them that it's okay to cry. Like even in his daycare, they're like, no, big boys don't cry. And I was like, no, this big boy does cry. And I tell him, it's okay to be sad. It's okay to be sad. But I do also add in, but we still need to do this, or we need to still like, but it's gonna be okay, and we still need to get ready, or we still need to do this, or maybe we can do this instead. Like, so he understands crying is okay, but we still need to get up and keep going. Let's check to make sure nothing's broken. Let me give you your time. Let's hug. You're okay. I got you. And then let's keep going. Um, and so it's how, and I'm very like sensitive to that, because I'm like, I grew up not feeling comfortable crying. Like crying was a negative thing. And it's really impacted my relationships getting, through like adolescence, and especially like in my 20s. I didn't make great decisions. I was in bad relationships because, I emotionally was just not in a good place and was very like blocked off. I didn't like emotions. I didn't like people. I cringed. I did not like affection. I got uncomfortable when people would actually give me any type of affirmation or like praises. I love you. No, like I cringed. I hated being told any of that, especially in public in front of another person. It was just, I was a hot mess. And so I don't want my son to have to deal with all of that. I want him to feel comfortable in himself, in his emotions, to understand that emotions are a normal part of our lives, that crying is actually not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of strength, that when you cry in front of another person, that takes more strength to do it than holding it in and then letting all that toxic stuff just build up in yourself. So these are all things that you learn through yoga, through mindfulness practices. He knows how to he knows how to take deep breaths. Like this little kid is so much farther in life than I ever was set up for. And I'm so excited for him, because when the time comes, he's going to have a lot of self regulating tools in his little toolbox that's going to make me feel confident that he's going to know what to do. And when he doesn't, he knows how to regulate, how to get beyond the fear or beyond the anger or whatever emotion is keeping him in that spot, and move on. Like, okay, let's do this. Like, okay, I cried it out. Whew, I feel so much better. Let's get it done. Let's get some. So, just wanted to share that with you guys. Definitely recommend Down Dog app. I would love to hear if you have any other like yoga apps, because let's be honest, especially if you're an entrepreneur and an entrepreneur mama or a mamapreneur, it's incredibly hard to find those little pieces of time to get, whether it's yoga or workouts or whatever, meditation into your day to day. And so for each, everywhere all different. And so different apps, different instructors, different types of like delivery systems work better for all of us, based on like your uniqueness and your awesomeness. So I would love to hear if you have like any type of app that you really like. It could be mobile or desktop, because I know some of them, they're just desktop only. They don't really have a mobile version. Mind Valley's been a really great one, but that one's more for meditation. I've been using the Mind Valley to do quantum leaps. I will do a separate podcast on quantum leaping. That is like mind blowing, but it's probably a little out there for some people. And I try to explain it to one of my brothers, and he actually got it, but I think it's based on the context of like how I was explaining it to him. Now he understood it, but whether or not he would actually like feel comfortable enough to sit there with me and like quantum leap in his own like personal life, that I don't know. But at least he knows that that's what I'm doing, and he understood. Um, and sometimes that's all it is. Like, I don't need you to accept what I'm doing or like it or have an opinion, but it's just nice to kind of share like, dude, yeah, I quantum leaped into whatever, for I was looking for answers for this, and I went into, a quantum leap to go find my answers today. And so, yeah, if you're curious about quantum leaping, what it is, you've heard of it, never tried it, you're curious about it, you want more, comment in the podcast, and I definitely will put it on my to do of things to like elaborate on. But I hope you're doing fantastic. Remember that you are doing the best you can, and that is always enough. Uh, yeah, just, it's the holiday season. Be kind to yourself, have grace, make sure that you're taking time, even if it's just 5 minutes. Keep paddling forward, and I will catch you in the next episode.